You knew that this subtitle was going to get some people's attention. The global elite secret plan for the next financial crisis.
Right.
Now, what are you saying about the global elites? Are they doing certain things before this crisis as far as stockpiling cash, doing certain things with their trades? And are they doing this because they know better, or are they conspiring with each other? And what can we learn from what you know?
Great. Well, I don't think it's a conspiracy in the sense that there's, a small group of Illuminati wearing hooded robes sitting around a mahogany table like a scene of Spectre from a James Bond movie. It doesn't work that way.
But of course, you used to hang out with those Illuminati in Greenwich, Connecticut.
We'll
get to that later.
That's another story. So, okay. But the way it does work, and I talk about this in the book, first of all, it's not a secret. We know who they are. It's Christine Lagarde, her first head of the IMF, her first deputy managing director, David Lipton, professors like Larry Summers and Ken Rogoff at Harvard, public intellectuals here in the UK, Adair Turner, Anatol Koletsky, Mario Draghi, head of the European Central Bank. So it's a collection of central bankers, finance ministers, academics, think tankers, and public intellectuals, and several hundred of them around the world who collectively run the international monetary system, right, because they either run the central banks or the multilateral institutions, or they're in and out of finance ministries, or they have a lot of influence. So that's who they are.
They influence 90% of what happens,
or more.
Exactly. Okay. So there's no secret that it's some other guy.
We know who they are. Okay. Right. So then what about the hooded robes part? And the answer is, they don't need that. You just say conspiracies fall apart, and they do. Conspiracies are kind of easy to spot most of the time. It's more the case that they're like-minded individuals. They don't need top-down organization because they all agree with each other. They all went to the same schools. They went to Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, Harvard, Chicago, Stanford, like 6 or 7 schools in the whole world. They all went to them. In many cases, they were each other's PhD thesis advisors. Stanley Fischer is the vice chairman of the Federal Reserve, former MIT professor, a little older than the rest. He was
slamming my alumnus here.
Look, I know a lot of these guys. I mean, I kind of know whereof I speak. As I say, I hung out with the 16 PhDs and the 2 Nobel Prize winners at Long-Term Capital. I shared an office with Myron Scholes for 6 years, so I know this milieu. But Stanley was the thesis advisor to a lot of the other central bankers. So they're not only like-minded, they taught each other. And they all learn the same thing, and it's all wrong. They're not uneducated. They're miseducated. In other words, the models that they have taught themselves, that they perpetuate and that they're teaching to the younger scholars, are at best obsolete and at worst dangerously flawed in ways that are setting up the system for this new crisis that'll be worse than the last 2. So they're in control. They're like-minded, so they don't need a lot of coordination because they all think alike. They've got badly flawed models. And they never see this coming. So are they trying to wreck the system? No, but they are wrecking the system through their own kind of ignorance and misapprehension of the statistical properties of risk. Meanwhile, they are smart enough to know what we're describing, which is that this is going to happen again. They can see it coming. They don't actually understand why, but they know that nothing got fixed in 2008. One way to think about this, Brian, is that the dynamics and the mathematics of a financial panic are exactly the same as the collapse of any complex system anywhere in the natural world. So earthquakes, volcanoes, forest fires, various phenomena, avalanches of this kind, they're not just metaphors. I mean, I use them as metaphors in writing, but they're not just metaphors. The dynamics are identical, but with one difference, which is in a man-made system, you can truncate it with policy. In a natural system, you cannot. So when an earthquake starts, what's an earthquake? An earthquake is a release of energy. That's how you define and measure an earthquake. When an earthquake starts, you can't stop it. Like, you can't stop an earthquake in the middle and say, time out. But if you could, imagine if you could, what would happen? That energy would be unreleased, but it would still be there. The pressure would be there building up. It just didn't get released that time. Now bring that over to the man-made systems. There, when the earthquake starts, when the release of energy starts, you can truncate it. So you have dominoes falling, boom, 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 boom. You know that the last one's going to fall unless they drop a steel wall between 2 dominoes. Now the domino hits when the next one doesn't fall. That's what they did in September of 2008.
Right.
They dropped a steel wall between Lehman Brothers and Morgan Stanley didn't fail, but because they guaranteed every bank deposit, money market fund, and currency swap in the world.
When they should have let it fail, or nature would have let it fail?
Well, they should have let it fail. Now, I don't think we should have allowed ourselves to go into something worse than the Great Depression. There was a solution on the table that they never pursued because of cronyism. See, now we're getting into the gangster side of it, the cronyism side. So what they should have done, by executive order, and the legal authority was there, they could have nationalized all the big banks. Not permanently, because I'm not in favor of socialism, but temporarily nationalize them.
And cleaned them up.
What you do is you wipe out the equity. First of all, you rip out the bad assets and you put them over here in trust for the American people. So it might take 20 years to sell them, but whenever we sell them, that money goes to you, the taxpayers. Over here, we now have a clean bank. Equity, you're wiped out. Bondholders, how big's the hole in the balance sheet? 20% haircut, 40% haircut, whatever it takes. Preferred stock, you're probably wiped out. Put the losses where they should be. Put the losses on the people who deserve it, which are the stakeholders in the institution. So now you get rid of the bad assets, you wipe out the equity, you now IPO a clean bank to raise new equity, and you start over with Citibank and Goldman, all these guys private, with new owners and clean balance sheets, and we can get the economy moving again.
Okay.
That is not what happened. What did they do? They took the TARP money. By the way, TARP was the greatest bait and switch in history, because Hank Paulson, our Secretary of the Treasury, went to the Congress and said, I want this money so I can buy the bad assets from the banks. I want to strip out the bad assets. It's not what he did. He took the money and gave it to the banks as capital, and they kept the bad assets, which meant that when they recovered, the bankers got the profits, not the people. So this was cronyism as first. Nobody went to jail. None of the big banks failed, other than Bear Stearns.
Right.
So the big banks didn't fail.
He was ex-banker. Was he
Sorry?
Paulson was ex-banker, right?
Goldman.
Yeah, Goldman.
Yeah, so they bailed out their buddies. All these guys kept their jobs. They kept their phony baloney jobs. They got their $1 million bonuses. Their stock price came back. When things recovered, the profit didn't go to the taxpayers where it should have. It went to the banks. Everything about this was corrupt. But they could have done this nationalize, clean up, re-IPO, privatize, and kind of move on with a clean bank.
Okay, so that was the other option.
That was the other option. It was not done.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, learn from the best minds in the world, and connect with a community of passionate people building the best versions of themselves. Just click on the link below, and I'll see you on the inside.